Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and this Titan ain't nothing, because we got a Magnum, and again, easy mode, we're pretty much making a chump out of this Tyrant, but I suppose I might as well give the devil its due, and wow, that's... oh yeah, some monster, Spencer, but yeah, to kind of give the devil its due, it is technically the prototype Tyrant, so yeah, not fully complete yet, and I suppose an earlier version of the project. It is actually quite dangerous. You did see a little bit of what it could do in the previous two parts, you know, where I was drunk and skimmed over it, and it's kind of, in terms of how you fight it, it's kind of a mixture between the T-78 Tyrant from Code Veronica mixed in with the original Tyrant. It'll lumber around, it'll swing its claws at you. It does have a jump attack, and yeah, save your boss buster weapons for this thing, but apart from that, it's really just sort of nothing. I mean, again, it would probably be a little bit something more to watch out for on, you know, normal and hard mode, but yeah. Again, provided that you're very tactful with your ammo consumption, then you should have it no problem. The fuck you frog, on the other hand, yes, it is going to be making a return something fierce. But yeah, in the meantime, it's, yeah, we're just doing part 2 of getting the battery mechanic thing, you know, where we fulfill stuff. Which again leaves us with very little to talk about, and again, that was something that you sort of noticed in the last part where I was struggling to come up with things to say. But talking about some plot revelations ahead of time, yes. It also seems, and again, I'm only really pointing this out because I watched the cutscene ahead of time, but yeah, when it comes to James Marcus's research, we know that the man is past tense, and, you know, Oswald Spencer wanted to co-op the research, and I do have to wonder, actually, because in the upcoming cutscene you will find out, but yeah, it seems that a lot of the experimentation James Marcus was doing on leeches was later handed down to William Birkin, so I do have to wonder, was the G-Virus's compatibility factor entirely based on some of the stuff with leeches? Because, I mean, again, there were similar, I wouldn't say amphibious, but there was like, well, I mean, there was like a certain squelchy, tentacle, gross monster element to the G-Virus itself in terms of how it reproduced, which leads us to some very dark implications. But yeah, it seems, again, James Marcus's research does technically connect to Resident Evil 2 in some sense, but they don't really make much of a connection to that. I mean, again, I suppose the fact that, again, the leeches can sort of bond to any human body that they come into contact with, as opposed to the G-Virus, which it did require certain genetic factors to be in play, which is part of the reason for some very incestuous subtext in Resident Evil 2. That, again, it needed the right genetic material to lock onto the right host so it could technically reproduce, otherwise it just, well, but you know, I think you saw exactly what happened with Brian Irons, that their body gets ripped to shreds and they basically just shit out a reject G-Virus mutant. But I don't know. I mean, it is interesting to think about, but they don't really draw much of a comparison because, and again, I think I did mention this before, Albert Wesker and William Birkin just sort of drop out of the picture at this point, and I mean, they do have one more appearance in the upcoming cutscene, but they don't really have any more active involvement, so again, and the whole idea of this thing being a prequel is just sort of like, well, shit, things are going south. I'm leaving Umbrella. Bye, Birkin. I'm gonna stay here and finish my G-Virus research. See ya, Wesker. And that's about all the involvement that they have. I do get the impression, you know, given some of the earlier trivia I put out with, you know, Wesker's monster and the whole Great Ape kind of thing also showing up, that there might have been more with Wesker than in fact we saw, but I guess maybe the developers realized that again, if Rebecca saw Wesker earlier on, then she probably would have said something to Chris. Or, I mean, at the very least towards the end of the game, but then again, I suppose, you know, the whole idea of her not wanting to implicate Billy into any of the events, or the fact that she technically never sees Wesker, she just hears the name Practical Al, which could have been anybody, so I guess that's technically their way of having him involved but not involved, but it does also make for a lot less tense stakes knowing that, again, Wesker is well aware that Rebecca knows what's going on, and, you know, should eliminate her first, since she has shown practical survival skills, and again, surely by the time of Resident Evil 1, you know, he must have known that she was still knocking about up and I don't know. It's kind of weird because he never directly interacts with Rebecca in Resident Evil 1, since, again, I know when I did the commentary I showed the Jill scenario where Rebecca doesn't show up at all, so again, he does technically know that she exists, but I guess he didn't know whether or not she survived the James Marcus incident, because again, as is typical with our Resident Evil games, there is a whole self-destruct segment, so I guess maybe he either thought that she died getting blown up in the chamber, or that maybe she died to the zombie dogs when making her way to the Spencer mansion. I don't know, it's weird. It's some of these timelines don't really align, and it's, just makes things a little bit messy when it comes to storytelling. Well, I mean, at least relatively speaking, because again, I have talked about the game's story and how it simultaneously does connect to future events, does hint towards things to come. It's just that not a lot of it is really relevant, and even when you do take the future games into account, it just sort of sticks itself as a sort of, like, in-between game. It's kind of like the middle episode in a movie trilogy, really, where, like, things happen, there's setup, but not really any real payoff, which does kind of make the ending of the game feel a little bit, I don't want to say mid, but I mean, it does kind of makes it feel, like, insubstantial. Which I feel is a real negative way of putting things, because again, like, I mean, what the game does is pretty strong Resident Evil as you know and love it, but it is just sort of a little bit old hat, really, which, again, is something I should say for final thoughts, sure, but yeah, there's just not really much else I can say, really. But anyway, by the time you use this little lever over here to raise the bridge, then Billy can come across, and then you can use him to get a boost to get the battery, and then you can mix the chemicals, create battery acid, and then do a thing. Bada bing, it's all very straightforward and not very interesting. So, I guess if I can kind of bring up anything else, I suppose maybe the rest of the Bravo team members were reconvening with Enrico, since some did make their way into the Spencer mansion while others didn't. I mean, again, when you saw Edward head off into the train earlier on, Star's Alpha team found what remained of the helicopter pilot, so I don't know, it's quite weird, really. They don't really show up. Again, I do think it genuinely would have been fun if we could have had, I don't know, maybe some sparse appearances from Kenneth or, you know, Richard, but again, the game just doesn't really do that, and it is quite saddening, really. And if I had any more trivia, I'd use it, but I don't seem to have anything anymore. So I guess in any case, I could probably just talk about another thing that I've had on my mind recently, or at least just a fun-filled topic that can while away the wee hours as we play more item management in the game and have Billy's epic tale of escaping the fuck you frog, because I know it shows up at this point and makes me paranoid. And this was me testing out a little mechanic where, again, if you don't have the shotgun equipped, you can actually run a bit faster, which I think was the only reason why if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't in the animation of climbing a ladder there, I think I would have been fucked, but yeah, I don't think the fuck you frog can jump up onto that platform. I mean, as far as I know, and I'm not exactly going to test that theorem by waiting around, but yes, supposed to talk about what I was talking about beforehand. It comes with Resident Evil 9, actually. I mean, nothing to do with the game itself, since we don't even know what it really is, but more to do with the name, really, because, I mean, given the franchise's penchant for trying to have, like, weird Roman numeral naming puns, like how Resident Evil 8 was called Resident Evil Village, I'm curious, actually, what Resident Evil 9 is going to be with, you know, IX. Because, I mean, the only one I can really think of at the moment for, you know, to have a whole Resident Evil IX name would be maybe Resident Evil Matrix, which kind of gives the which, I mean, again, I'm not really too sure what you could do with that. I suppose maybe, I guess maybe doing something similar to the 2002 Resident Evil movie, where, like, an Umbrella Hive-like area is gone haywire with the computer systems, it releases zombies, and basically it's up to a team of STARS people, or BSAA agents, or fucking Umbrella operatives to put a stop to it as they survive machinations, which, I mean, in terms of premise, I mean, it is actually a rather good one, and part of the reason why I do at least have some degree of fondness for the first Resident Evil movie, even if slightly towards Resident Evil Apocalypse, but, I don't know, I mean, that's the only real pun name that I can really think of. I mean, I was initially thinking maybe Resident Evil Exit, but I realized that they might save that for Resident Evil 11, if it ever gets to that point. No idea what they'll do for Resident Evil X, so maybe they'll just call it Resident Evil X, because adding X to the end of any name makes it immediately cooler. Boom. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. We're just getting batteries. Batteries. Speaking of batteries, mine are running low. I ain't got no more batteries. But yeah, I mean, why exactly Rebecca couldn't just, like, move some boxes and use them as a footstool to get up there, I have no idea. I mean, it's weird, but... Oh yeah, and because we can't carry the item, it's like, oh, no, we can't even just put it on the ground or have Billy carry it or whatever, so... Yeah, we gotta swap items. Again, item box would have saved us a fuckload of tedium. But them's the breaks, really. Now, let's do it all again. Battery, and now for a cutscene. Oh yeah. Oh no, the skitterbugs! Oh, somebody get this bug spray! Ah! Well, I suppose using the flame rounds will suffice for the time being. But yeah, that was kind of an expected jump scare, and using an enemy that was right near the beginning of the game, really, so it's not that big of a surprise now, so... fun times, I guess. Wee, but that's also where we find out that we need some battery juice. We ain't got no powers, and, to be honest, I kind of feel like more could have been done with the chemical mixing, but I guess it was a mechanic that, bizarrely enough, they weren't really confident in. Which is weird, considering that, again, you could have just simplified it kind of like similar to mixing, you know, gunpowders or grenade rounds into, you know, Resident Evil 2 and 3. I mean, it would have been easy to do. You just combine different types of A, B, and C, and combine them together to create, you know, specific powders or whatever, but whatever. Here's what I was talking about earlier. I missed, which was, again, on me, but unfortunately, Billy just... Yeah, don't do anything, Billy. Just stand there. Don't fucking shoot or anything. Ugh. Jesus fucking Christ. But you wanna know what takes the real pisser? We show up there again, and it's gone. Ugh, God, I mean, not that I'm complaining, mind you, but I mean, Jesus Christ, just have some fucking consistency, really. It's all I ask. But yeah, that's what we did all the battery finagling about for. To get a keycard, which pretty much leads us to our final destination. Of course, not after a bit of faffing about by getting some more items and stuff that I included here, because fuck it, why not? Might as well paint myself into a corner and ramble about the brambles of this game. Even though there just really isn't too much to say at this point. And again, I know that's kind of the sign of a bad commentator and something that I should have prepared tangents for, but there really just isn't too much to Resident Evil 0 as it is, so, again, like, I mean, I wouldn't call it a bare bones Resident Evil experience, because again, you are getting your gameplay mileage for what it's worth, but it's just... I mean, in terms of design, there's not really too much that it does to twist the formula on its head, or really spice things up with a more creative use of its game mechanics, which again, if you would have thought that... You know, if you take, like, typical video game development stuff into consideration, again, like, I mean, you save, like, a lot of the patchier parts of the game for the middle experience, so that, you know, it's a little bit rough, but at the same time, far enough from the beginning and the end of the game so that it doesn't ruin your impression. But yeah, you would have thought by the end game they would have saved the best partner switching mechanic stuff for last, and they don't really. I mean, they make usage out of the chemistry mixing stuff, but... That's pretty much about it. There's no creative Billy and Rebecca switching stuff, and no, that fucking valve puzzle doesn't count. But yeah, that's, pretty much all she wrote. There is a bit of a lengthy cutscene coming right at the end, but, yeah. So again, we're pretty much just saving and doing some item gathering stuff, so, teleporting... And here is where I finally get my revenge on the fuck you frog. Oh yes, this is gonna be sweet. Now, yeah, you remember the showed up beforehand where it tried to make a meal out of Billy? Well now, we're gonna be having frog's leg soup like, oh, Monsieur Croquette. And it missed me, so now I shall make fried frog for all my Frenchy friends. Oh, viewers, we are eating good tonight. And yes, this is just me being petty because it's easy mode, I have ammo to spare, and yes, I am a very petty, vengeful, spiteful bitch. Justice! Oh, yeah, that feels good. But yeah, it's pretty much just cutting down for time, and we're finally exiting out of this cursed place. And, yeah, after this point, we're pretty much entering into first a boss fight, then our final boss fight, and that's pretty much the end of the game in the final part. So next time, we're finally finishing this. Oy, it's been a long, rough road, but we're finally here. There you go. Look at it make quick work out of the naked zombies. Resident Evil 0, always sticking to formula and always having their zombies be naked. I'm not sure if I talked about the story behind the naked zombies beforehand, but yeah, it was initially done as like a space-saving thing for Resident Evil 1, where they didn't want to animate clothing textures on the zombies, so yeah, they were initially going to be walking around with very featureless nudity. And no, in the 2002 remake, even the more recent remakes actually, where they do have naked zombies, there is no swinging dead penis action. Well, unless you're going for some of the more lewd mods of the game, but yeah. Count your lucky blessings. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I think I'm just gathering some more supplies, but yeah, that's pretty much it, really. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot some acid rounds up here, which will be immensely useful because, as you can no doubt tell, yeah, we're due in for an encounter with Leechman, who will reveal all. And I can finally stop using the moniker Leechman because we'll finally know who the fuck this guy actually is. And I'll give you a little hint. He ain't Marcus's grandson, neithers. But that will be for the end of the video. Coming soon to a DVD near you. Oh god, that's a piece of technology that hasn't exactly been relevant for a while, and will probably continue to fall by the wayside. Physical media. Gotta preserve that for as long as we can, because, dear god, the more people are sucking into the fucking streaming, always online bullshit, the more we're gonna be fucked over when it comes to the future. Does anybody wonder what happens when the servers go down? I deduce, dear boy. Anyway, with a bit more item management in the game, just sort of happening as is, then we'll finally get to our final destination. Not the movie Final Destination, because there have been one Final Destinations too many, including the Final Destinations, which is in fact the 4th Final Destination, and just fucking whatever. Stop caring. But yeah, this is pretty much it. The final hallway. The last chase. We better be ready for whatever happens. But yeah, Magnum at the ready, grenade rounds ready to rock, and of course, well, just outfit Billy with something powerful. And so, on that note, I am Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on Resident Evil 0, we finish this shit for good. Bye-bye.
Conniptions for the final that you came here for. The one derivative you manage is the one I abhor. I need a minute to eliminate forever what the